Preds.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
The Bears. The Bears.
I am the great Cornholio.
We'll see what happens.
The playoffs?
See, Sean McDonough, Jay Villas. Goats!
Can you play a song? Something cool. Put my mic on!
I'm calling both games.
Oh, baby! Are you serious? Goes down the field for Smith. Oh, he got it!
Seattle. We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
Welcome back to the Mike's Menace YouTube channel. How are you guys doing today? Good. I hope you're doing good, at least, as we are in like day 1 million, it feels like, of no sports, even though it's like, what, day 8? I think it's day 8. Well, no sports in the respect that we have no sports being played. But thank goodness for NFL free agency being wild, because if it wasn't for that, I think I would have definitely lost it by now. Losing my sanity, rather, because I don't think I would have been able to, I don't think I'd be able to do it for too much longer. So I'm really glad that NFL free agency has been crazy, and if you haven't really been following it, watch the video and you'll find out, as we got a lot going on here in free agency. So again, I hope you're doing good today, or doing well, whatever the correct grammar is. I'm not exactly a grammar king when it comes to that kind of stuff, but getting right into it, one of the first things we had happen today, or in free agency, was a trade between the Jaguars and the Ravens. And the Ravens got defensive end Calais Campbell, and they traded a 2020 5th-round draft pick to the Jaguars. And the 5th-round pick that they traded to the Jaguars was acquired when the Ravens traded that backup kicker, Kare Vedvik. I don't really know how to pronounce his name correctly, but you may remember that when we had that backup kicker that was pretty good. And a lot of people were saying, are we going to keep him, or I'm sorry, the Ravens, are the Ravens going to keep him, or are they going to keep Tucker? And the inevitable answer was they're going to keep Tucker. He's the guy. And my cat is meowing at the door again. And it seems like yesterday's video, I didn't really listen to the whole thing back through, but apparently you couldn't, the audio didn't pick up the cat meowing. So just thought that was worth mentioning. But, the Ravens get a good defensive player that'll help their defensive, the edge, the rush, because that was something that was kind of lacking. And pair that with the franchise tag on Matthew Judon, and that will be good. They'll be good to go, I believe, in terms of that, because after Suggs left the year prior, the last year was the first year without Terrell Suggs, and you could tell that they had a missing link without him there. And I know Suggs is getting older, and it may not have been the best, the best linebacker on the team, but this cat, I tell you what, even though Suggs, getting older, may not have been the best linebacker option, he still had that experience and leadership. And as they try to rebuild that defensive core, and last year the Ravens had a really good defense, but you could still tell there were some missing links. See the Tennessee Titans playoff game, for example. And now I know Derrick Henry's a really good running back, but you could just tell they were really struggling to stop him. And Calais Campbell, I think, should help out with that. So I like that move, and I like that they didn't really have to give up too much in exchange for him, as the Jaguars are really busy in the trade market here, as I think they're kind of trying to rebuild around Minshew, and trying to do the rebuild the right way, as I feel like they were kind of trying to do it before around Blake Bortles, but that really didn't work. So they're trying to do it the right way this time. And hey, we'll see how it goes. I think with how busy they are in the free agency and trade market right now, I think they're on the right track. I don't think necessarily they're going to be, in competition for a huge playoff run this season. They're not in a win now mode, as you might hear some people say. They're more of, trying to rebuild for the future, as the whole division is kind of, on the same level playing field, except for the Titans. And we'll get into that here in a second. You might be thinking about the Texans. Well, we'll get to that in a second. But first, we have another trade with the Jaguars, as they traded cornerback A.J. Boye to the Broncos for a 2020 fourth-round pick. And you're kind of seeing the Jaguars go on that same trend that the Oakland Raiders, well, Las Vegas Raiders now, were going on before when Gruden first took over as a coach, where they're trading like Khalil Mack. And I mean, that's what the Raiders did, trading away these pretty decent names and these, big names for draft picks. And you're kind of you might be scratching your head a little bit saying, why are they doing that? Why are they scratching, or why are they trading these guys away? Not why they're scratching that, but why are they trading these guys away for draft picks when they're worth much more than that? Well, you're going to get what you can out of these guys in the trade market. And for draft picks, you never know who you might be able to get. You might be able to use those picks that you acquire to, trade for other guys or trade up for a better draft pick. But this is the same kind of thing that the Raiders did a couple of years ago when they traded away Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper and, a couple other names as well, I would imagine. But yeah, so the Broncos get another, get a cornerback that'll help their defense a little bit. Again, not a big name, but just another noteworthy or a notable trade for the Jaguars and the Broncos there. Now this, before we get into, there was a big trade, and I can't remember. I put this together yesterday, but Austin Hooper was a tight end for the Falcons. Kind of a household name if you're a Falcons fan, and his contract was up. They didn't sign him to a new one. He was a free agent, and he will agree to terms with the Cleveland Browns. And so the Cleveland Browns are starting to put together a pretty good team. They just are in need of a decent coach, and they're trying another coach again for like the 5th millionth time. I think it was the previous Vikings offensive coordinator, and I think they've got a guy they're the Browns' new head coach. I think they've got a guy now who knows what he's doing. I don't think this new guy is an idiot like the previous 8 million experiments that they've had at head coach. So with Mayfield, Odell, Landry, and now Austin Hooper, you pair that with Chubb and Kareem Hunt, this could be a team that, might be in second place in the AFC North, or giving the Ravens a good run for their money for that NFC, or I keep saying AFC North championship. So, I think the Browns are starting to put together something promising. But again, Browns are going to be the Browns. So putting together a decent team. And last year, a lot of people are saying, oh, the Browns have OBJ now. They've got it. And they had Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb and all this. They were all saying, oh, look out for the Browns. They're going to Super Bowl contenders. I never bought it from the beginning. I said, there's no way. There's no way they even make the playoffs. Too early. They have to build on things before you can do that. And I was right. But I think now they start to build this team up a little bit. They are going to have a second year out of some of these newer guys. I believe they have a coach now who's not an idiot. They have a coach who knows what he's doing, I think. So with that being said, I think they might be able to make a playoff run. The Steelers are kind of falling off a bit. Sure, they're going to get Roethlisberger back, but a Roethlisberger with nobody around him, it's almost reminding me of the Patriots with last year with Brady and nobody around him. How far can they really go? So I think pair that with, if you're an NFL fan, you might have heard some things about Brady moving on from the Patriots. With that happening, that the Browns, I think, almost they are at a critical point right now of their quote unquote rebuild. If they don't make the playoffs this season, this upcoming season, it's going to be detrimental to their rebuild. They have to make the playoffs this upcoming season in order to really make anything happen. Because if they don't, it's almost a sense of now or never. You either make the playoffs now and really start something special, or you just continue to be the same old Browns and just disappoint year after year. So a big, a focal point right now of the Browns rebuild, and we'll see how it goes next season with their new acquisition in Austin Hooper. Now, this was the big trade so far of the free agency week. This week so far, it's a big trade. The Houston Texans traded DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, the guy who you can pretty much throw a 50-50 ball to, and he makes it an 80-20 ball. He's really good. And they traded him for David Johnson, a 2020 second-round pick, and a 2021 fourth-round pick. And the Cardinals also got a 2020 fourth-round pick. Now, if you're a Texans fan, and even if you're not a Texans fan, I think every person that knows anything about the NFL is scratching their head a lot. Because, I mean, it is like, I think 3 days after this had happened. And I'm still wondering how you have a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, who's definitely, I think, a future Hall of Famer, one of the best wide receivers in the league, if not the best, and you can't get a first-round pick out of him in a trade. I don't get that. I mean, the Cardinals absolutely fleeced the Texans out of this. I mean, this is ridiculous. The Texans absolutely. I mean, if you're a Texans fan, you have to be really, really, really disappointed. You know, if you're a Texans fan, I want to know your thoughts on this, because, I mean, there's so much wrong with this. I mean, this Texans team is a team that was making the playoffs, starting to make the playoffs consistently, starting to be a consistent team. They have Deshaun Watson, they have DeAndre Hopkins, and they've got countless other decent players. And now you take DeAndre Hopkins out of that situation, and it's almost as if you just tore that team apart. DeAndre Hopkins was the guy holding the team together almost. Well, at least on the offensive end. And now you take that guy out of the situation, and I mean, it's a huge gap. It's like that commercial, the Snickers hole. If you've seen that before, that's exactly what it is. Except you can't put a Snickers bar in it and fix the situation. That's just not how it's going to work. So, Cardinals won this deal without a doubt. Okay, and the Texans get David Johnson, who, yeah, he's a good running back, but I mean, I'm not understanding it. And if you've been watching, ESPN and all that good stuff, you've probably heard that there was like some kind of disconnect between DeAndre Hopkins and Bill O'Brien, the head coach. And I believe Bill O'Brien is also like the GM of that team, which is, he needs to stop taking on that role, because he doesn't know what he's doing. And a lot of people were pointing to the disconnect between those two as being the reason that Hopkins got traded, and it very well may be. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was the disconnect between Hopkins and Bill O'Brien was that O'Brien said that Hopkins was bringing the mothers of his kids around too much or something like that. And, the reason for that was the reason that, Hopkins had gotten traded, because there was just not a good relationship between Hopkins and O'Brien. And Hopkins had come out later I think it was yesterday, and said, it's being blown way out of proportion. I've always had, love for the Houston Texans organization, and, just nothing but appreciation for the Texans and what they've given to me. And, I'm moving on to Arizona right now, which is fair. That's fine. But, I think there's definitely something there. You can't just overlook the fact that there was some kind of I don't want to say disagreement, but there was some kind of, again, I'll just keep going. There's some kind of disconnect between Hopkins and the coach / GM, and it just wasn't going to work, I'm guessing, and they just went their separate ways and went to a trade as their resolution. And you may be wondering, how will the Texans fill this gap? Well, you can't really ever fill this gap. As I said, it's like the Snickers hole commercial, except you can't put a Snickers candy bar in it, in that wide receiver, and fix it. That's just not how it works. But the Texans went out in free agency and got Randall Cobb to fill the gap. And I mean, look, DeAndre Hopkins is a guy, as I said, future Hall of Famer, one of the best receivers in the league. You're not really going to ever be able to replace that. Which, again, I hate to saying it is what it is, but it is what it is. And, okay, fine. You go and trade DeAndre Hopkins. Not the best move, but it's over and done with, okay? Hindsight is 20/20. You got to move on. But Randall Cobb is not the guy that you're going to – he's not the guy that's going to be anywhere close to filling a DeAndre Hopkins role. Nowhere close. If you want to go out and get a guy, I think maybe you should have traded DeAndre Hopkins to a different team and maybe gotten a receiver in return. But Randall Cobb's not going to be the guy to be anywhere close to filling a DeAndre Hopkins role. There's no way, because it's pretty simple. Randall Cobb is nowhere close to DeAndre Hopkins in terms of ability. So another trade involving a wide receiver, and here's the thing. Those books like let's see, it's like for dummies or whatever. Like I'm just trying to think of one, like PowerPoint for Dummies or something like that. They need to make a book about trading for dummies, NFL trades for dummies, and Bill O'Brien and the Texans organization needs to go buy it. Or you could just take a look at what the Vikings and Bills did with their trade for Stephon Diggs. The Vikings traded, so there was Stephon Diggs was not happy with Minnesota. Okay, he wants out. The Vikings said, okay, let's work a deal. Let's work something out. They trade Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills, and look at all they got for him. The Diggs and a 7th-round pick. Look what they got. A 1st-round pick, a 5th-round pick, a 6th-round pick, all in this year's draft, and then a 4th-round pick in 2021. That's how you do a trade, okay? And Stephon Diggs is good. Don't get me wrong. He had that Minnesota Miracle, and he's good. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, he's nowhere as good as DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, well, maybe he's close, but he's not as good as DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, plain and simple. I think we can all agree on that, right? That's simple. But look at what they got for Stephon Diggs, and look at what the Texans got for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, the Vikings, maybe it's just a sense of, hey, we know what we're doing. Or, I mean, here's the thing. This is how you make a trade. This is what you do. You get a 1st-round pick, okay? That's number one. That should have been the first thing that the Texans were looking for in terms of what they were getting in return for Hopkins. Sure, a 2nd-round pick is fine, but you mean to tell me DeAndre Hopkins is not worth a 1st-round pick? That's ridiculous. If you can get a first, fifth, sixth, and fourth round pick, if you get 4 draft picks, including a first round pick for Stephon Diggs, who again, don't get me wrong, he's really good, and he's gonna have a great career in the NFL, but DeAndre Hopkins is definitely one of the best wide receivers in the league, and you can't get a first round pick for him? That's just ridiculous to me. And here's the thing. Sure, you don't want DeAndre Hopkins on your team if you're the Texans. That's fine. But shouldn't you be able why wouldn't you want to get the most out of him that you can? I mean, are you really that stubborn and really that set on the fact that you don't like him and you don't think he's that that valuable and you want him out? Are you really that set on proving your point? Because here's the thing, you're not going to be able to prove that point at all. Because people like me and people that know anything about the NFL and know anything about the Houston Texans are going to tell you that DeAndre Hopkins is worth a first round draft pick. And to not be able to get that out of him is just ridiculous. Because again, this is how you make a trade. You get a good amount of draft picks, and I mean, you throw him a bone, you throw him a gimme, the 7th round pick. You just throw, what do they call it? Throw him an attaboy. That's what that 7th round pick is. Just and that's like when the on those commercials, like, call now and you get a second one free, just pay processing or whatever. That's what that 7th round pick is. That's how you make a trade, not how the Houston Texans traded Hopkins away, because that's just probably one of the worst one of the worst trades I've ever seen was that Texans trade in terms of what they got for Hopkins. But moving on from that, the Titans had a lot going on going into free agency. They had Tannehill, Mariota, Henry, Delaney Walker. I mean, the names just go on and on. Dion Lewis. I mean, just they had a lot of different players and a lot of different possible moving parts. So that was going to be an interesting thing to deal with. And now with the Jaguars trading a lot away, the Texans blowing out what they had. What did the Titans do? Well, let's take a look. They signed Tannehill to a 4-year deal, so that's good. They got him for another 4 years, and so they had Tannehill come in, and after Mariota was not playing very well, they put Tannehill in. So with Mariota on the back end, what does that mean? What does the 4-year deal with Tannehill in Tennessee, what does that mean for Mariota? What will the Titans? Well, I mean, guess what would Mariota do? As he's a free agent, so they don't have to trade him. Well, the Raiders and Mariota agreed to terms. So now the Raiders have an interesting quarterback situation. And in this year in free agency, this is the year of the quarterback. And I've mentioned that on my radio show with WIXQ. As I said, there's so many moving parts this year. Brady, Tannehill, Mariota, Winston, Newton, Bridgewater. Let's see, who else? I mean, Prescott. I mean, there's so many names that could possibly be moving. So this Mariota deal with the Raiders, now that's making me wonder: are the Raiders bringing in Marcus Mariota in the same respect that the Titans brought in Tannehill? Because Derek Carr has not been the best, I would say. In the fact that, or in the respect that he has been underperforming, and that Derek Carr has not been giving the Raiders what they ultimately will hope that he would have been giving them. So I think they're kind of bringing in Mariota in the same role that the Titans brought in Tannehill, to kind of push their starter to be better, and if not, well, put this guy in and resurrect his career like the Titans and Tannehill story did. So yeah, as I said, Derek Carr, hey man, might want to start playing a little better. looks a little worried there in that picture. That I don't know when that was from, but I just found that. But yeah, Derek Carr, if you don't step it up, buddy, you might be sitting on the bench. So the Raiders again making more moves, signing Jason Witten to a deal. So here we go. They're starting to build things up a little bit. And as I said earlier, with the Jaguars trading away players for picks is similar to what the Raiders did with Cooper and Khalil Mack. And now they're getting, but they have a good running back, Josh Jacobs, the Raiders I'm talking about. They have Carr and Mariota. They're going to figure that quarterback situation out. They signed Jason Witten now, and I think if they can draft one of those Alabama wide receivers, as I mentioned in one of my other NFL video, if they can get a good wide receiver out of the draft, then they could possibly start to be putting things together a little bit, putting together something a little promising. So yeah, I think again, I understand Witten is kind of on the older side. He retired and then he came back. I get it, but I still think you can still get some good performance out of him. So while it may not be the best move in the world, it may not be a huge blockbuster move, it's still somewhat decent. So Witten, his former team, the Cowboys, agree to a 5-year, $100 million deal with Amari Cooper to keep him on the team. And as I said before with the Browns, it's a pinnacle year. It's a focal point. It is, now or never. The same goes for the Cowboys. They put the exclusive franchise tag on Dak Prescott. They're going to have Amari Cooper. They have Zeke Elliott. I mean, depending, might make a move on the draft. I mean, they're getting a new coach in McCarthy. If they can't make a successful year next year out of what they have, it's, I think you start to, I think it's going to collapse if they don't, do anything this upcoming year. It's now or never. You either come out and you play really well and you make a playoff run, or you continue to disappoint like you have in the past. Ever since Jason Garrett took over at being the head coach. So again, more Cowboys news. Well, okay, that's weird. I guess I had that slide in there twice. Other notable players tagged, as we said. Prescott was tagged. We had Matt Judon was tagged with the Ravens, as I mentioned before. AJ Green franchise tagged with the Bengals. Derrick Henry with the Titans. So there you go. That solves that question. What will Henry do, and what will the Titans do in terms of running back? Yannick Ngakoue was franchise tagged with the Jaguars. However, he wants out, so they're probably going to make a trade in regards to him. So that'll be something to look out for. And then Hunter Henry was franchise tagged with the Los Angeles Chargers. So the Chargers now getting into that, as I think. Oh, sorry. Before we get into the Chargers, which is another interesting team to take a look at what they'll do, and we'll get into that in a bit. Some other interesting, as I call it, quick hitters. Falcons released Devontae Freeman. That could be, he's going to be he's a decent running back. Could be somebody that you want to pick up. I think automatically I think of teams that may want to pick him up are teams that like the Eagles. I think could pick him up. Possibly the Steelers. Just trying to think of what other teams might need running backs. I can't remember who the running back for. Well, I know the Texans have David Johnson now. Cardinals might pick him up. Depending on what Melvin Gordon does with the Chargers. Maybe the Chargers sign Devontae Freeman. So Freeman has some options. Different teams that could be in need of his services. Titans make a lot of releases, releasing Ryan Suckup, Dion Lewis, Cameron Wake, and Delaney Walker. Those are no average names. I mean, those are some pretty decent guys there. So we'll see where those guys land. Dion Lewis, again, probably won't be a starting running back, but could definitely be a backup somewhere, a solid second string running back. And then the Browns released Christian Kirksey. So, he's, again, solid name, no joke there. But here we go. Quarterback, absolute. I mean, like I said, year of the quarterback. Phillip Rivers signs with the Colts. That is huge for the Colts and for the Chargers. We'll get into that. Teddy Bridgewater signs with the Panthers. That's big for the Panthers. We'll get into that. Tom Brady reportedly goes to the Buccaneers. That is huge for the Buccaneers and for the Patriots, obviously. So we'll get into all of that. But starting with the Saints, as we said, Bridgewater to the Panthers. That move came after Breeze and the Saints agreed to a 2-year, $50 million deal. And with Bridgewater going to the Panthers allowed Cam Newton to seek a trade. So that may seem fine and well and all good. But the problem was, I guess we're going to get to that later. My bad. Just a little preview on that. Newton didn't want to be traded. He wasn't wanting that. He wasn't asking for that. So with Brady on the Buccaneers and Breeze back with the Saints, that gives us this marvel of a matchup twice a year because the Buccaneers and the Saints are in the same division. Who else is pumped for Brady Breeze 2 times a year? I'm all in for it. Sign me up. I'm ready for it. I know Brady didn't have such a good year this year, but you could definitely make the argument that now he has guys around him, and we'll get into that in a second. He could have a good year with the Buccaneers, but who knows? It could also be a huge disappointment. But Brady and the Bucs, who does he have with him now? Who can he go to? He's got Ronald Jones, who, again, may never have heard of him before, but he is an up-and-coming wide receiver, or running back, rather, and he's improving. He's decent. He's no joke, but he's not, obviously, the best in the world. He's pretty good. Then you've got guys like Mike Evans, Brashad Perriman, who, Perriman was absolutely terrible with the Ravens and the Redskins. I believe he was with the Redskins. I'm not sure. But as soon as he got to the Browns and now with the Bucs, he's getting his stuff together. I don't know how. I don't know what got into him, but he somehow learned how to catch a football, which is going to be good for Tom Brady. And you also got Chris Godwin, who's good, and you also got O.J. Howard at tight end. Now, these names and these players may not be the best players in the world, but it's a lot better than what Brady had in New England last year. And if New England, now, granted, Brady did have Belichick coaching him. Sure, you can make that point, and it's a valid argument. But if Brady can get to the playoffs and win 12 games with a bunch of nobodies around him other than Edelman, you have to wonder, what can Brady do with these guys and how good can he be? It'll be interesting to find out. And, I think Brady, I don't know. I'm hesitant because there's always been this kind of underlying argument that people have been making. Is Brady good because of who he is, or has Brady had the great career that he's had because of Bill Belichick as his coach? We're going to find out, and I think it's a little bit of both, okay? That's the easy argument, and that's the easy point to make. That's a little bit of both, but I really do think it is a little bit of both. You can only do so much with, being a good coach. And, the reason that I'm taking a look at is Brady had the good career. Has Brady had the great career because of what Belichick has done? Is because I look at what Belichick did during those 4 games that Brady was suspended. And that, Belichick took Jimmy Garoppolo, made him a good quarterback. He took Jacoby Brissett and made him a kind of a household name. Before Garoppolo and Brissett were, before they had those great games and those 4 games with the Patriots during Brady's suspension, those guys were a bunch of nobodies. Now they have, Brissett had a starting job last year, and Garoppolo had a starting job in San Francisco and got to the Super Bowl. I know he blew the Super Bowl lead, but he still got to the Super Bowl. That's an achievement in itself. But again, you have to be wondering, will Brady have success? I think he will. Definitely. I mean, it's Tom Brady we're talking about here. It's not, it's not Joe Flacco or it's not Eli Manning. I mean, Eli Manning will be good. It has been good, and he's had a great career, don't get me wrong. But we're not talking about, trying to think of like some other like average names here. We're not talking about, I can't think of any like decent. Carson Wentz is one that comes to mind. We're not talking about Carson Wentz here, where, no disrespect to Carson Wentz, but let's be honest, he's not as good as Tom Brady. Nobody is. Carson Wentz has not gotten himself into that elite conversation, I don't think, yet, where he's not on the same group as Breeze, Rivers, Rodgers, Favre, Roethlisberger. And I'm saying the same thing about Joe Flacco. People have always made the argument that, Flacco's elite. He was almost there. He really was. I know he got a Super Bowl trophy and he's got a Super Bowl ring and whatever. I get it, but my point is he's not in that same field as Brady, Rodgers, Breeze, Roethlisberger, Rivers. Okay, plain and simple. That's my point. But the reason I think Brady will have more success than some people are thinking is due to the coach that is on this team, Bruce Arians. Many people don't know this, but Bruce Arians has worked with so many really good quarterbacks. He worked with Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. He worked with Peyton Manning. He worked with Ben Roethlisberger. He's worked with just about every future Hall of Fame quarterback. And I know Andrew Luck may not be a future Hall of Famer, but Andrew Luck still had a really good career, okay? But Bruce Arians he's a good coach. He took a guy like Jameis Winston, who was, pretty much blind out there, and although he had 30 interceptions, he also had 30 touchdowns. Winston, he's good. I think he'll land a job. May not be a starting job, but Bruce Arians also worked with Carson Palmer in Arizona when they went to the playoffs a couple times. So Bruce Arians has worked with a lot of really good quarterbacks. When I say really good, I mean phenomenal quarterbacks. And I think pair that with Tom Brady's ability, and Tom Brady being arguably the greatest player of all time, it's hard to not think, it's hard to say they're not going to be successful. I'm not saying they're going to go win the Super Bowl, but I don't think they're going to be, bottom of the barrel like they have been the past couple of years. Now, getting back to the Cam Newton Carolina Panthers deal. So as I said before, the Panthers allowed Newton to seek a trade. Now, when you say that, it kind of implies the fact that he wanted a trade, right? Wouldn't you think that I say, okay, the team lets him seek a trade? Wouldn't you think that meant he was wanting one? I think that's something that we can mostly agree on. Well, turns out that Newton did not want a trade. He took it to Twitter saying, quote, "Stop with the wordplay. I never asked for it. There's no dodging this one. I love the Panthers to death and I will always love you guys. Please do not try and play me or manipulate the narrative and act like I wanted this. You forced me into this," end quote. that's pretty simple, right from the horse's mouth. He did not want to trade. He wanted to stay in Carolina. So what do they do now? I don't think they keep him because look, you take a look at what their other options are and what they have. They just recently signed Kyle Allen to a 1-year deal, who's he's pretty decent. They signed Teddy Bridgewater, as I said. They're not going to keep all three of those quarterbacks. They're not going to be the New Orleans Saints and have last year the Saints had Breeze, Taysom Hill, and Bridgewater. The Panthers are not going to do that under a new under new leadership, under new coach, under new coaching, and all that stuff. They're not going to keep Newton, Bridgewater, and Kyle Allen. That's just not how it's going to work. So what do? Where does Newton go? Some people say the Chargers. That could work with Rivers gone. That could be an option. I could see that. But here's the thing: what do you trade? I think maybe a decent trade for Newton would be something along the lines of Keenan Allen or Melvin Gordon, or Allen or Gordon and some trade picks and some draft picks for Newton. That could be something I see them doing. They're not going to trade Hunter Henry because the Panthers do need a tight end after they lost Greg Olsen recently. The Panthers could go out and get Delaney Walker for tight end, but Chargers are after the Chargers didn't get Brady. Cam Newton and the Chargers could be something that we see. Cam Newton and the Patriots. Well, the Patriots are in need of a quarterback now after they don't have Brady. I don't think the Patriots are going to roll with Jared Stidham, a guy that I've never heard of until I looked up the depth chart. The Chargers, though, do have another option where they can draft a quarterback. They have a top 10 pick, I believe. The Colts they don't have to worry about the Colts getting Jordan Love from Utah State. So I think the Chargers could go that route and get a quarterback from the draft. The Patriots, though, with being in where they are in the draft, they're either going to have to trade up for a quarterback, for a draft pick for a quarterback, or they're going to go free agency. And here's the deal. Most of the quarterbacks, you go back a couple of minutes, the quarterback madness slide. Rivers is off the board. Brady is now off the board. Bridgewater's off the board. Who else was it? Mariota's off the board. Tannehill's off the board. What are they going to do? The guys that are left are Winston, Newton, Nick Foles just got traded to the Bears. So, the Patriots don't have very many options. Are they just going to say, are they going to bite the bullet and roll with Jared Stidham? I don't think so. But again, with the way Belichick is, he might take Jared Stidham and go to 13-3 somehow. I don't know, but I think the Patriots are put themselves in a tough spot by waiting kind of and not getting more involved with Brady and seeing what he wanted to do. So with the Patriots, with that being said, I think the Patriots could go Winston, Newton, or they might trade for somebody. I don't know. They could trade for Newton because that's what they would have to do. So other people are throwing around the narrative that the Bears might sign or might trade for Newton, but that's not going to happen now because Nick Foles just got traded to the Bears. And another reason that I don't see Newton, I never saw, even before the Nick Foles trade to the Bears, I never saw Newton going to the Bears. Here's why. Now, look, okay, Mitchell Trubisky. I get that he's not one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I get it. That's 100% correct. But the Bears are kind of in need of a Tennessee Titans, Las Vegas Raiders situation where they need another guy to come in and kind of push the starter quarterback a little bit, maybe give him some competition. And that's exactly what Nick Foles right now is to the Bears. He's going to give Mitch Trubisky that push. And Cam Newton is not a guy that you bring in to push your starter. Cam Newton is the starter. Okay, there's no way that unless the Panthers were not going to sign Bridgewater and they were going to trade Newton for Trubisky, maybe, then you have Trubisky and Kyle Allen. That could work, but that's ultimately not what happened. So there's a lot of different, again, year of the quarterback, as I said a couple times. Now, there was another trade here with the Colts and Niners where the Niners got the Colts' first round pick, the 13th overall pick. And in exchange for that, the Colts got DeForest Buckner. And in one of my previous videos on the YouTube channel here, I was saying that the Colts might go out and draft a quarterback in Jordan Love, or there's another person I was possibly talking about them drafting. Well, and I believe they made this trade before the Phillip Rivers move, which, after they made the trade, I kind of implied that they were going to go out in free agency and get a quarterback, which they did. And so they've got their quarterback situation solved. They're going to get Rivers, but and we'll get to him in a bit. So there's that. They, the Colts kind of get a sense of direction, get a sense of where they're going. And again, there you go. They don't need to worry about drafting a quarterback in the first round because they have Brissett and Rivers now. Now, Rivers, is it a good fit? I don't know, because I say I'm hesitant because here's the deal. Rivers and the Chargers, they didn't do too well last year, the Chargers. And they had Keenan Allen and Melvin Gordon, who I realized came in later this season after holding out. They had Hunter Henry. There's another couple guys that Chargers have, wide receivers, that I'm blanking on the names. But the point is, he had some pretty decent guys around him, and he didn't do anything with it. Now he goes to the Colts, and who does he have around him? T.Y. Hilton? And again, I might not be thinking of some names that are on the Colts, but I just feel like, if Rivers couldn't have success with the Chargers, how is he going to have success with the Colts? I'm just throwing that out there, and I'm just wondering. So unless the Colts go out in free agency and pick up some guys and make a team around Rivers, then okay, that's fair. Maybe we start to see my view on this would probably change. Another idea is in the draft they may get a decent running back or wide receiver or a couple wide receivers in the draft and kind of build around Rivers that way. But as it stands now, as the Colts team stands now, I don't see how Phillip Rivers can really take the Colts, to be a really successful team. Maybe not. I don't think the Colts will be as bad as the Chargers were last year, but I don't think the Colts will be all of a sudden, winning the division or anything like that. Now, going back to the Chargers, after they've lost Rivers, what are they going to do for quarterback? They could take Newton or Winston. They would have to trade for Newton, and I believe Winston's a free agent, and they might have to trade for Dalton as well. And that's another option. The Patriots could get Dalton as well, and I think we're going to get to that in a bit. But the Chargers could go out and get Newton, Dalton, or Winston, but what are they going to do with Melvin Gordon? What are they going to do with Keenan Allen? They have Hunter Henry, sure, but one guy, what does that really do for you? It kind of reminds me of the Patriots with one guy, Julian Edelman. and even he's limited in his abilities. So the Chargers have to make a decision. Do they want to scrap everything and start the rebuild, or do they want to kind of go out and get bigger names like Newton or Winston? They can draft, go to the draft. As I said, Jordan Love, they get a top 10 pick. They could, I'm trying to think of other quarterbacks in the draft right now. I mean, I had said it in another video. I'll probably put it at the end with the little, the 2 videos that pop up and all that good stuff. Or is it next man up, which is Tyrod Taylor? I don't think, I don't think that's a viable option. Tyrod Taylor, the last time he was decent was with the Bills, and that was what, 4 or 5 years ago, and then he's with the Browns. 3 years ago, I believe. 2 or 3 years, no, 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying Tyrod Taylor's terrible, but I don't think he's, maybe not the guy that is the long-term solution. And here's the thing, maybe they want to rebuild. Maybe they draft Jordan Love and they keep Tyrod Taylor. Who knows? But that's the thing. Are the Chargers going to rebuild, scrap everything and rebuild? And if they're going to rebuild, they could still keep Tyrod Taylor and draft Jordan Love. That's still an option. Or are they going to be in a win now mode and go after guys like Newton or Winston? I think looking at their division, seeing that the Raiders are making some moves and they'll probably be a viable, they'll be a competitive team in the division, and the Chiefs coming off a Super Bowl victory, that's plain and simple in itself. I don't know where you want to go with this. Sure, you could start a rebuild. That would be, that's an option. But a win now mode is also an option, because you can, if you go out and get some guys and you keep Allen and Gordon and Hunter Henry, I mean, they've franchise tagged him. If you can keep all those guys and go out and get a guy like Cam Newton or Jameis Winston, then, you might put yourself in a good position to maybe get, run for second place in the division and maybe make a wild card run. So it'll be interesting. I think both options are very well on the table. Now, going back to the Patriots, they have the same options: Newton, Dalton, or Winston. Who do they want to bring in? I think looking at their division, the Dolphins have made some moves. The Jets, if they can get everybody on the same page and they can get everybody healthy, and then they go in and you get some wide receivers in the draft, they could be a dangerous team. The Bills are looking like right now the Bills are looking like the front runner to win that division, with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and John Brown. That's a pretty good team. That's a strong team. So the Patriots want to be, again, in a win now mode and go get Newton or Winston. Do they draft a quarterback, which I don't know how they would do that. I guess they would have to trade up for one. Or is it next man up? Like I mentioned, Jared Stidham. I don't think so. Here's the thing. The Patriots, now this is a really weird thing to think about. Are the Patriots going to start a rebuild? That it's possible. I mean, they don't really have much around. Brady was the only guy holding that team together, other than Julian Edelman, and sure, you got Sony Michel, but whatever. That's 3 guys, right? And as I said before, Julian Edelman is even limited in his abilities and what he can do. So I think the most likely of the 3 options are you rebuild around. I think you trade Edelman and possibly Sony Michel for a better draft pick, and maybe you draft a quarterback there, or you go out and trade for, it's, again, you can use Edelman and Michel and trade for Newton or Winston or whatever. But, if you take those big names and you trade for Cam Newton, then Cam Newton's got nobody around him. It's the same problem that Brady had last year. Winston, sure, you could sign Jameis Winston and then draft some wide receivers or, something like that, or go out in the free agent market and sign some receivers. But, I think right now, the most likely of the three options for them are rebuilding, either Jared Stidham for a year and be absolutely terrible, or trading for a draft pick and getting a quarterback there. I don't think you'll see them go out and get a big name in Winston or Newton. I think you'll probably most likely see them start a rebuild, which the Patriots rebuilding is one of the oddest things I think I've ever said. Crazy. And another guy, you might be thinking about this guy, Robert Griffin III. What about him? Could he possibly see a return as a starting quarterback in the NFL? For me, the first thing I think about is no. I don't think so. Because I just don't think he's got it anymore. Sure, he led the Ravens to a win in the last game of the season against the Steelers with a bunch of backups. And you might be thinking, well, could he do that with good guys too? Like, could he be even better with starters? It's possible, but I don't think you'll see teams make an effort to go out and get Robert Griffin III. Maybe the Patriots, maybe. But again, I don't think it's a likely option that teams will be, begging for Robert Griffin III. I think it may be a later move, and I don't know if I don't think he'll necessarily be a starter in it by any means. So what are your thoughts on the crazy start to the free agency? Comment section below would be great. Some other notable moves, though, I got to get to is Derek Watt signs with the Steelers. Vic Beasley Jr. signs with the Titans. And the Eagles parted ways with Malcolm Jenkins, who signed with the Saints. Now, it may be just a Eagles fans, you might know more about this, but it may be a case of cap space, that they couldn't pay Malcolm Jenkins. But here's the thing. They let Malcolm Jenkins walk, but they keep Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills, the guy couldn't cover, the guy couldn't cover a fly last year. I think my cat could have gone out and caught a ball with Jalen Mills covering it. So I don't get it. You keep Jalen Mills. Apparently rumors are they're going to move Jalen Mills to safety. You keep Jalen Mills, but you get rid of Malcolm Jenkins. I don't get it. And again, maybe it's a reason, and because you couldn't pay him. That very well could be it. I haven't looked into it, but I saw that and I was like, what? I don't get it here. I'm confused. So Eagles fan, how are you living with that? What do you think about that? Jalen Mills is staying, but Malcolm Jenkins is not. And Malcolm Jenkins is already signed with the Saints, which I like that move. I think that's a good move. The Dolphins are making a big splash. Sorry, I had to make the pun. They're reportedly going to add Jordan Howard for running back. They're going to add Kyle Van Noy, decent linebacker. And they are going to sign Byron Jones, a cornerback. Not quarterback, but cornerback. I like those moves. Those are some pretty decent moves for a team in the rebuild. So I like that. I like that move. I think that's good. Some other moves. Michael Pierce, a defensive lineman, will sign with the Vikings. He was with Baltimore, and the Ravens replaced that rather quickly, or before Pierce walked. They got Michael Brockers, a defensive lineman. They either traded for him or I think it was a free agent. I'm not sure, but Michael Brockers will be with the Ravens next season. And going back to the Eagles real quick, as I said, Malcolm Jenkins walked, Jalen Mills stays. There's a gap there. How are they going to fill it? Well, they went out and traded for cornerback Darius Slay, who's with the Lions. So they traded 2 2020 draft picks, a 3rd and 5th rounder, to the Detroit Lions for Darius Slay. That's a good move. If I'm the Eagles, I'll take it. So, Eagles fan, put your reaction to that down in the comment section. That'd be great. As I said, Saints and Malcolm Jenkins agree to a deal. Dante Fowler Jr. will sign with the Falcons. That's a good move. And former Steelers safety Sean Davis agrees to terms with the Redskins. And the Seahawks bring back Bruce Irvin, who was on the team when they were in the Super Bowl. So those are just some other moves within the past day and the past couple hours or whatever. So again, what are your thoughts on the crazy starts of free agency? Is there any moves that have really jumped out at you? Your thoughts in the comment section will be great. You can leave that down below. But other than that, that has brought us to the end of the free agency episode on the Mike's Madness YouTube channel. I thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, a like would be appreciated, and subscribe as well for more videos coming up. I will not be on the radio show for the rest of the semester because we're online. We're not going back to campus, so the YouTube channel will be popping, as some people might say, with videos. I'll be uploading quite frequently, I believe. Or I think that's how it will work. I'm not really sure yet. I don't really have a big plan, as everything kind of new. So, yeah, subscribe for more videos. And, again, comments in the comment section are always welcome. And other than that, I will see you all in the next video. I'm out.